What's going on, everyone? My name is Johnny Bandit, and I'm your CCNA instructor for this CCNA video series. To start this video series off, we're going to go over OSPF. So, OSPF is going to be the main routing protocol that you're going to learn about in the CCNA and be tested on. If you watched any of our intro sections, we should be going over the CCNA exam objectives, and you'll see that this is the only layer 3 routing protocol besides static routes that Cisco wants you to know about or at least be tested on in the CCNA exam. So with that being said, they also are not going too deep into OSPF either, at least according to the exam objectives. However, from multiple rounds of doing in-person boot camps, students have come to me and said that routing, static routes, and OSPF are the things they remember most on the test, right? As in probably the most quantity. Again, you can't talk about the test outside the test environment, but that's okay. They didn't say specifics. They just said OSPF is important to know. So, with that being said, we are going to try to do a deep dive on OSPF. I want to keep the lecture portion of this under around an hour and 15 minutes. However, we could go a lot deeper into OSPF if we wanted to. For the CCNA exam, they just want us to go over single area configuration, the type of networks, and like the parameters of OSPF, right? Which we're definitely going to hit, and we're going to make sure you understand in the lecture portion. But we're going to do a little bit deeper of a deep dive, right? Because my training philosophy is I'm preparing you for the CCNA, but I'm preparing you for that next step of that next leg of your journey, which hopefully is network admin or junior network engineer role or junior network admin, and hopefully preparing you for the CCNP. So we're going to go pretty in what I believe is pretty in depth for the OSPF for the CCNA level. So let's go over our agenda. So the first thing we're going to do is just a high level overview of OSPF operation. So we're just going to get right into it. This is how OSPF works, right? And we're going to do this in little blurbs, okay? Then we're going to go over the different OSPF rules, meaning the stuff that the rules OSPF follows when creating a routing domain or a routing area, which we'll learn. We're going to go over OSPF packets, and we're going to go over OSPF network types. Another important thing we need to know about OSPF is that it operates differently on networks. So you have point-to-point, point-to-multipoint, broadcast and non-broadcast networks. And these are networks that it's your connection out, right? So a broadcast network would be something on an Ethernet segment. An NBMA network would be like DMVPN, and you're routing over DMVPN. Point-to-multipoint is something like MPLS connections that you have between hub and a bunch of spokes. So these different types of networks have different OSPF operations, okay? Different things about OSPF. And then we're going to get into the OSPF metric, an important thing to know, especially when it comes to our global routing table and choosing the best path. And then lastly, OSPF configuration. So the only labs that I would say are a requirement is going to be the first OSPF lab we do, which is going to be simple. Single area, maybe 2 to 3 routers, right? Depending on how I build that lab out. And then I'm going to have bonus labs going over multi-area OSPF, going over stub area, not so stubby area, virtual links, right? Looking at area border routers, stuff like that, okay? So before we get into the lecture part, just during this intro, I want to introduce you to some of the source material I use for this. Because again, OSPF can be a pretty deep topic, especially for a routing protocol, right? So I have my book here that I use when I'm doing a lot of the route and switch concepts. And that is, if you can see this, it's Routing TCP/IP Volume 1, part of Cisco's CCIE Professional Development Series. It is a little old. I think this was published, early 2000s, or this one was published 2012. It's a little bit newer. Oops. Go back. Sorry about that. But it is great source material. The authors, Jeff Doyle and Jennifer Corral, CCIEs, and they're 4-digit CCIE numbers. So they've been around for a while. They deep dive into all these different TCP/IP routing protocols. And there's a volume 2 that you should definitely check out as well, going over BGP and multicast. That is just so good when you're on that CCIE track or really trying to fundamentally understand these concepts, right? This is hitting the books, right? Another book about OSPF. Let me bring this into view here. Is this book, OSPF, Anatomy of an Internet Routing Protocol from the actual inventor of OSPF. So I used this book to develop these slides and to just, not totally relearn, but go over the nuances of OSPF that sometimes you forget when you're just busy troubleshooting, configuring all the time. Great book. I mean, it's the inventor, right? Everything you need about OSPF is in this book. The only thing missing is kind of like the new RFC editions, because this was published in 1998, I believe. So again, that's the first edition. So there's been other editions added. And then you see down here that routing TCP/IP Volume 1 is still used. Volume 2, it's still just great source material, especially when you've passed your exam and now you want to get into a really good deep dive. Okay, awesome. So that is going to be it for this intro video. Stay tuned, and we're probably going to hopefully break this up into 4 or 5 videos of OSPF and then jump into our labs. So thank you for viewing and stay tuned.